Welcome back to the Soft Life podcast with Sadie Baddies. Today we are welcome and honored to have the amazing Tonya Lewis Lee, who's here with us today. I'm beyond excited to be speaking with you again and just welcome you into the podcast and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be talking with you again.
Yes. So for those of you who might be new, Tonya and I have spoken before a couple of years ago on the topic of wellness and Black maternal health. But since then, she has been tremendously busy and active, and we are going to learn more about what she's been working on recently and learn more about her creative process and her work as a director, producer, and author. So, Tonya, could you share some of the, kind of take us backwards and share some of the most pivotal moments of your upbringing?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I think, when I think about that, what comes to mind for me is, first of all, my third grade teacher, Miss Moody, who was an amazing Black woman who I feel saw me and thought I was smart and valuable. And, she was just a role model for me beyond my parents. And I moved in the middle of my third grade year. So I only had her for a half a year, but she had a real impact on me that's carried along in my life. And speaking of that, I did move in the middle of my third grade year. I also moved in the middle of my junior year of high school. My father was working for a corporation and we moved a lot. And so moving around had an impact on me too, feeling a little like an outsider often in places, having to figure out how to fit in new circumstances, once everyone had all their friends and everything was already going. So I think those kinds of things had real impact on me.
Yeah. Definitely. And can you tell us where you're from originally?
So I was
where you grew up.
Yeah, well, I was born in New York. I was born in Yonkers, New York, and then we moved to New Jersey and lived there, like I said, until the middle of my third grade year. And then we moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was there for 8 years until the middle of my junior year of high school. And then we moved to St. Louis, Missouri, which is where I graduated from high school. And then I went off to Sarah Lawrence College and University of Virginia Law School.
Awesome. Amazing. So a lot of us are familiar with your background as a director and producer and author. Of course, we have your most recent work, Aftershock, the documentary, which we'll get into in a bit. We also have the TV series that you co-produced, She's Gotta Have It, which we love. And last but not least, your children's book, Please Baby Please. What started your creative spark that you still, are active in today? And what motivated you to pursue these creative works in your career?
I think I was always creative. I wrote poetry as a young person, when I had all of my angst, like that was my way of expressing myself, but didn't really think about it as anything that I could do for a living, but I enjoyed writing poetry, short stories. And when I graduated from college, I was thinking that I maybe wanted to work in television. The idea of, writing, directing, producing television was really exciting to me, but I had no idea how to do it. I didn't know anyone who was in the television or film business. I didn't see a path, and neither did my parents. So they were kind of like, you need to go to law school or business school.
Yeah.
And I went to law school. But then when I met Spike and we got married, at the time I was practicing law, but in the evenings working on an entertainment magazine, which is creative in and of itself. And we got married, and Spike said, you know what, if you want to be creative and do creative things, that's what you should do. And so early in our marriage, I would get up in the morning and I would write, and I kept working on my craft for years before I showed anybody anything that I wrote.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, my generation, a lot of times we can be very focused on visibility and the results of what we're doing, but really good work takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So I love hearing that, you were kind of working on things creatively here and there, but you weren't necessarily ready to share it because it was still in that creative womb that needed it for it to be, something that's worth sharing, I guess,
Exactly. I call it being in the woodshed. You got to be in the woodshed.
I like that. Yes. I like that. I like that. Well, we also know that you are the founder of Movita Organics, which I love. And I really, really think it's amazing what you've created as a product, as a supplement company and a brand. And I would love to know more about, how you came about starting Movita Organics, and just tell us a little bit more about the products that you love.
Absolutely. Movita Organics really came out of my work as an infant mortality awareness raising campaign spokesperson some years ago, and we had a campaign. I traveled the country, learned a lot about women's health, but then we created a peer-to-peer program where we had college kids talk to their peers and young people in the communities that the schools were located in about making healthy lifestyle choices for the sake of your unborn children that may come in the future. Just getting people to start thinking about it. And I wanted to create a peer-to-peer way for myself to keep having that conversation, because as you and I have talked about, it's hard to be as healthy as you can be. It takes community. It takes conversation. And I also wanted to create a tangible tool for women to be able, something that was tangible, that felt like it was a little bit of a help. And so Movita Organics really comes out of my desire to continue the conversation with women, because while I am very proud of our products and they are awesome and premium products, I'm also the first person to tell you no one vitamin is going to do it for you, right? So it's part of the lifestyle. But I will say, and I appreciate you asking, our products are made from certified organic ingredients. They are fermented, which means they're made in a way that your body absorbs them like food. And you get the most out of the vitamin. A lot of times we take vitamins and we only get, say, half of what the nutrients that are in there. Ours will give you more bang for your buck because of the way that we process them or make them. And they're whole food. So I'm extremely proud of them. D3 is one that we recently came out with that I love taking, especially in these days of COVID, and as the days get darker sooner, we don't all get our
right
vitamin
now.
D. Exactly, we need our vitamin D.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about Movita. I'm really, really proud of it, and I hope people check it out.
It's amazing. It's an amazing, the packaging. I love also how sustainable it is in the glass bottle, and then the refills that come in the paper packs it's really attentive to what we need both inside, but also helping to, have a more sustainable way of being in your lifestyle, which is amazing. So yeah, definitely check out Movita Organics if you have not already. So I want to talk about Aftershock, obviously. I know that, you are a huge advocate, actually probably one of the most recognized advocates of Black maternal health. And I would love to know, how you came about getting into this advocacy work. Was it someone that you met along, your path or your way that really struck a chord with you and made you want to do this type of work? Was it research that you looked into, or, you yourself being a mother? I would love to know kind of what sparked this advocacy that you're doing today.
The truth is, honestly, I feel like I was called to it. I feel like, I wrote Please Baby Please. And a few years after that, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reached out and asked me to be a spokesperson for this infant mortality erasing campaign I mentioned, A Healthy Baby Begins With You. I didn't know the U.S. had issues with infant mortality. I certainly knew that as Black women, we tend to index higher in all sorts of health issues. And certainly had I've had my own journey of trying to figure out how to be as healthy as I can possibly be as someone who was a child who had lots of allergies, often was sick every winter, at least twice a winter with bronchitis. Didn't really, was a little heavy, was going to the doctor for weigh-ins once a week and learning about how to take care of my body. So I had my own journey and then found myself immersed in a world of women's health. And I got to tell you, I was really scared at first. I was not a public speaker. I didn't do that. But when I learned about the issues that were affecting Black women, I felt like I had to get out there and use my voice and deal with my fear, face my fear, stand up at the podium and trip my way through it until I got better at it. And, I think we all have a role to play in how we as Black women live our lives to the best that we can. I mean, I think we're the ones that are going to save humanity. And so we have to take care. It seems that way. So
it appears so. Yep.
Doesn't it? So we got to step up when we're called to do so. And that's what I did.
Yes. Well, I'm so happy that you did. And I think a lot of us are, following in your footsteps of creating that path and doing it in a way that looks good on you, right? Like, that you could create a documentary, I think one of the first of its kind, to really talk about Black maternal health. And for those who haven't watched Aftershock, you have to watch it. It's on Hulu. It's amazing. It is heartbreaking just as it is heartwarming in the same exact way. There's moments where you're crying, but you're also smiling, and it's such a beautiful and honest and raw depiction of what so many Black families go through. And I love that the film focuses not just on, the couples and the mothers themselves, although they went through a tremendous amount of challenges. It also shows how it affects the communities around them. And for, those who haven't watched the film, it focuses on two women and their families, but one woman by the name of Shimoni Gibson and Amber Rose Isaac. And unfortunately, both of them are no longer here with us, and may they rest in peace. Can you tell us how you first heard about Shimoni and Amber Rose Isaac?
Yeah, and it is, and I appreciate you saying what you said about the film, because we very much did not want the film to just be a doom and gloom, focus on the trauma, but it is trauma. But we wanted to be real, but we wanted to be inspirational and empowering as well. And I will say that Shimoni and Amber are clearly women who were loved. They were clearly women who were loving. And when you see their families, their essence comes through, know. And so I'm so grateful to the families for allowing us to follow them in the way that we did. We met Shimoni. Shimoni passed away in October 2019, and we met her family in December of 2019 when they were having a celebration of Shimoni's life. And, her mother is a reproductive justice or reproductive rights advocate in her own right, has always been. And her mother's named Shawnee, and Shawnee is she's an amazing woman and now a dear friend and family to me at this point. But Shawnee really wanted to have a celebration of Shimoni's life and a conversation with community about what was happening with maternal mortality and morbidity in our communities. And so she put out an invitation on Instagram that we saw. We called her and asked if we could come and film the Aftershock, which is the name of the event. And they allowed us to come film. And that began our process with Shawnee and Omari. And then in April of 2020, Amber Rose Isaac passed away. And we kind of we knew of Amber's story because before Amber died, she had put out a tweet about the treatment that she was receiving. And we had seen that. We couldn't believe it. We were like, oh my God, what is going on with her? And I think in our minds, we were even thinking about like, okay, after she gives birth, maybe we'll try to find her and talk to her, and then she dies. And a week after she died, her partner, Bruce McIntyre, had a press conference outside of the hospital. Somehow, maybe he had put that also on Instagram, and we got a camera out there to film that. But then Omari, Shamani's partner, reached out to Bruce to offer him comfort. This is what Omari does now when other families experience loss like this. He reaches out and offers comfort and support. And so they connected. Omari told him about the film, and we connected with Bruce, who also wanted to have a conversation with community, and was gracious enough to allow us to go on the ride with him as he does that.
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful themes that I took away from Aftershock was the brotherhood that Omari and Bruce developed. It really, really was beautiful to watch how, from this such a traumatic and heartbreaking event of loss of both of their respective partners, that they were able to form a bond, and not only a bond between themselves, but with other men and other people who have also lost their partners and their wives and their life partners from the similar incidences of neglect and medical negligence and postpartum complications. And I think it just showed the thread that even though you might be suffering from something that seems so heavy, there is still an opportunity for community to show up. And I think the way that it was just depicted was remarkable, truly, because I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've seen that in real time. You see it sometimes in fictional movies or, but in real life, seeing how they showed up for each other, and they're both, in New York, I think that was amazing. So
it is beautiful. And I will tell you, if you ask them how they're doing now, they each will say they're doing really well because they had the community support. Right. They had, because community showed up for them, that gave them the support. I mean, Bruce talks about how Omari saved his life, and it really matters that people show up and hold each other and are there for each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully, beautifully done. I would love to know kind of your creative process of how you started mapping out this documentary and how you went about directing it. And, now it's available to watch. How can you kind of walk us through? It is amazing. It's so amazing. I would love to know your creative process behind this.
Yeah. I will say, we did make this through COVID. So, like I said, we started in December of 2019, and then of course we go in lockdown in March. And I think there was a moment where we were really worried about how we were going to do this film. My co-director and I, Paula, knew that we wanted it to be a verite style film, that we wanted to follow the people who are most impacted. We didn't want it to be just sit in front of camera. You have experts sit in front of the camera, although we needed some of that to get the information. And so, with lockdown, we gave Omari and Shawnee and Bruce iPhones so they could film some intimate moments, and some of it we did use in the film. But we really thought about how we were going to go follow the families. And then we found two experts. We found Neil Shaw, who's the doctor who travels down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Helena Grant, who is the midwife at Woodhull here in New York. And there were more to some of these stories that we wanted to tell, but it was a lot that we had to wrangle, right? And so I think it became really clear that as we were following these families, we were understanding that protests and, showing up in the streets is the way we, the people, affect change. The way you impact your politicians, if you don't have a lot of money, is by making a big fuss and getting out there and demanding it, which is what they did. And we wanted to follow that, which is why when you get to the end and we're in Congress and Carolyn Maloney says that the United States was founded on the healthcare system is founded on systemic racism, It's like, it's the families that got her to that point where now she can say that.
Yes.
So it was about really kind of weaving the story. And again, as I said earlier, we really wanted people to be left feeling inspired, angry, inspired, empowered, and ready for some sort of action.
Yeah. I mean, check that box off, because that's exactly what, I left feeling that way. I watched it with my mom too. And, I think a lot of us, like, walking away from it, you have this urge to do something. You don't just, oh, that was great. It felt like a calling of, okay, what do we do next? Especially because seeing how much impact the community had on the entire, the partners, their families, but on legislation too. Now that you actually do have more power than you think. You're not, helpless. Yes, exactly. Could you tell us what some of the most challenging aspects of the making this documentary was, as well as some of the most rewarding parts?
Well, I think initially filming in COVID was a challenge, for sure, but we worked through it. We did work through it. I would say that, figuring out how we were going to get access to some of the hospitals, and that took time to really, talk to them, to get them to trust us. It's funny. You would think that getting the families trust would be the hardest, but they were ready and open. So it wasn't really the families; it was more the institutional aspects that became a bit challenging. And then I would say that it was the edit, because we did film a lot, and there were other stories and other storylines that we would have loved to have followed, but in order to really tell us a succinct story that you could follow, we had to make tough choices in the edit process. And there were things that we just like with the midwives. There was a whole section that we had with Helena Grant and some of her colleagues that was amazing, but we just could not involve that in the film. So that was tough.
Yeah.
The rewarding piece, I have to say, honestly, it's just the gift of Shawnee, Omari, and Bruce for me personally in my life, and I really mean that. Like, I've learned so much from them. First of all, about grief, like you said, about the idea that in watching them, if they can do what they do, then what can I do? There's more that I can be doing.
Exactly.
So that has just been. Shawnee and I were texting each other last night, and I'm so grateful that she's in my life and that she's a friend of mine.
Yeah, it was beautiful. She is incredibly resilient, but I saw so much tenderness. I saw so much hope in her eyes and her spirit. And same with, Bruce and Omari. I think they are all incredibly resilient individuals. However, I can only imagine what they have to accept on a day-to-day basis. It gives a glimpse of what it would be like, to be in that situation. But the way that they've been able to carry on and create something new, create art, create community, and it gives a lot of hope. Definitely. It's inspiring.
And I gotta say, I give it up to Shamani and Amber, because I think who they are and the way everybody's able to function has a lot to say. It says a lot about who Shamani and Amber were.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Their spirits radiated throughout the documentary, for sure. So switching gears a bit, I know that you are a wellness expert. I know you love your smoothies, your jogging.
I try. I don't know. I try.
You're doing it. Trust me. But as a wellness expert yourself, what are some ways that women and birthing people can prevent some of the challenges that you presented in the documentary when it comes to pregnancies and childbirth? What are some ways that we can proactively help each other, help ourselves, help our bodies?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, look, and I offer this advice saying that I understand it's not easy, right? That's the first thing I want to say. You know, you can say things and it sounds so simple, and it's complex. It's not easy, right? So, but the first thing I would say is shop for your healthcare provider. If your healthcare provider is not giving you the response that you want, if they're not connecting with you on a human level, go look for somebody else, like Felicia did in our film. You know, it's okay, even at 35 weeks, if you're like, I don't think this is the person for me, go see if you can find somebody else. And I say that by saying, I know it's not easy, but we can shop for our healthcare providers. They do work for us. The other thing I would say is, you know, if you can, whether it's officially a doula, or it's your sister, or it's your partner, or it's your mother, or whomever, have an advocate, have somebody with you to help navigate, help ask the questions, or at least, you know, if you ask the question so that when you get back together, you're out of the office, what did they say? How did they say? So that you would work it together. I think it's really hard when you're interfacing with a healthcare provider and you're the only one there. You need some support. It's hard. The only thing I will say to that is make sure as a woman that you get the support that you need around you. When a woman is birthing, especially, like, it's really important to have, it should be what works for her, you know, not for everybody else, you know, so take control, be empowered. This is your time. And the other thing in particular about birthing people, you know, Helena Grant from our film says, you know, when a woman gives birth, she's not just birthing a baby, she's also birthing a mother. So acknowledge and recognize it's a rite of passage. You know, you're going to go through something so that you come out on the other side as this new person, you know. I think we often talk about trying to get back to what we were after we have a baby, but you're not trying to get back to anything. You're going forward into something. So be mindful of that you are now in a new process, you know, but really we need to look out for ourselves and not settle for people who are not looking out for us.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. Those are amazing, amazing tips and pieces of advice. I know after watching that, I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to have a birthing plan and a doula. I need the aftercare. You know, when I eventually have kids one day, but I think it was a wake up.
You just said it. Can I just say, I love what you just said. All the aftercare, postpartum care. You do not need to be trying to snatch it back and hurry up. Take your time. Take your time. It's a year. It's a year postpartum.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, your body's going through this, like, a process that is unmatched to anything. So why force it to try to fit into the jeans that you were wearing 6 months before you got pregnant?
Exactly.
For what?
Your body brings life. It brought life.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing.
It really is. And it's, I think that's one thing that I took away is, like, watching all the different types of birth stories that were shared in the film. You know, you have a mom was going to do a hospital birth and then actually decided, no, I'm going to go to a birthing center, you know, versus someone who may not have the option of going to a birthing center. Whatever it looks like for you, just like the autonomy of that choice is what matters the most.
Exactly. Whatever works for you. Nobody can tell you what's right for you. Only you know that.
Exactly. So what kind of impact do you hope to see in our communities, in our society, and in our legislation with the release of Aftershock?
Well, first, I hope we do have, I hope Aftershock contributes to a cultural shift in the way that we think about birthing, just as you and I were talking. I mean, I think still to this day, midwives are still somewhat, some people still aren't quite sure what midwives are and what they're doing.
Right.
So I think when someone, so I think we should be open to that, right? Because it's just statistics show that midwifery care provides for better outcomes, right?
Right.
So I think that in general, as a society, I think we often focus on the pain. Someone says they're pregnant, the first thing is like, "Oh, congratulations." The next thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, that's gonna hurt." Like, we need to stop focusing on that. Like the pain. Maybe if we didn't focus on the pain so much, it wouldn't be so painful. And often women are induced, and they have medication that causes our pain to be worse, versus getting her the support she needs to have the right birth. So I hope we have a cultural shift in the way that we think about what an empowering experience birthing can be. And just what you were saying, that people come away from the film thinking about options. I can choose to birth in a hospital or a birthing center, or even at home. I may want to be in a hospital with a midwife. That's my choice. And if I can find that, good for me. If I want to be in a birthing center, then I should have the choice to be able to do that,
Right.
And then you mentioned legislation. I think it's really important that we have legislation so that all people have the option to have access to doula care, that midwives are reimbursed for their services by insurance companies, that, that we're not still fighting issues of the autonomy of a woman's body, like what we're doing now that Roe's been overturned. I mean, that to me is just a disgrace. Really disgraceful.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. So, I think it's a long road of, in this country, we still want to control women's bodies, but I think that, we just have to keep working hard, and, maybe eventually we'll get there.
Yeah. It's a process. I think that's it's a hard truth to have to accept, that it is a process, and it sometimes can make you really discouraged and make you apathetic, almost, of not wanting to try, not wanting to, go out and vote, or not wanting to do anything, but realizing that we have to take care of each other because we have no other choice. I think that's something that I, took away from it, not just because, we live in New York. New York is liberal, which is great. But, for a person or a woman who is in Georgia or in Texas or Louisiana, they don't have as many options as, like I would have, or anybody on the Northeast would have. So recognizing that privilege in our autonomy is so important. And I definitely took that away from watching the documentary.
Yeah.
Realizing my privilege.
It is. I mean, and it's crazy to think about. You're right. It is a privilege where we are here in New York. I think about our sisters in Georgia and Texas and, places like that. It's tough. But we gotta keep fighting. I mean, look, we got to keep fighting. We cannot give up. Our ancestors went through a whole lot for us to be here. And now it's our time to carry the torch.
Yeah. And I mean, if this documentary didn't put a fire under anyone, I don't know what will, because it definitely put a fire under me to show up and do something about it.
Well, you do that anyway, but I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. But one question I always like to ask is, in retrospect, what is something that you would tell the 5-year-old version of you, the 18-year-old version of you, and then the version of you that is 20 years older today?
Okay. I guess I would tell my 5-year-old self, don't be afraid. Don't be so scared. The boogeyman isn't a boogeyman necessarily. You can slay him. Be strong, hang in there. My 18-year-old self, I would say, stay focused on your mission. I think that there are a lot of things that, and yes, we have to fight discrimination where we see it, and we have to fight injustice where we see it. But I think sometimes, certainly in my education and my frustration seeing injustice, you get distracted and you're going to fight the injustice, but you've got to stay on track
Yeah.
with what you're doing, and don't allow yourself to get pulled into things, because later you can come back and fix them. I don't know. But stay focused a little more focused.
Taking self-care into consideration while you're still fighting the injustice.
Yeah. And then my future 20 years from now, wow, I would just say, keep taking care of your mind, body, and spirit, so that, you get 20 more years. I do think about my life like that. I hopefully 20 years from now, I'm still working in a way that feels really good to me. And because my plan is to keep working creatively in some aspect until the day that I die. So, but the only way I'm able to do that is if I take care of myself, mind, body, and spirit.
That is true. That's true. And I hope the same, that you carry on this work. It is impactful. It's so needed. So I really appreciate you being present, but still looking ahead to what your career could look like 20 years from now. Who knows? But just the fact that, you want to do something impactful creatively is beautiful. And last question, what does softness mean to you as a Black woman?
Softness to me as a Black woman, it's funny. I think what it means to me is what it evokes for me is a warm hug from my grandmother. I think, that's what I think of. I think of my grandmother, my aunties, just that warm embrace, all that the fleshy arms, the big bosom. Come on in here, baby. Come on in here, baby. And I smell, when I say that, I smell, pound cake, and, it feels warm to me.
Yes. The familiarity of it.
Yeah. Softness is warmth. I don't think of it as a negative. I think of it as a warm positive.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. We really, really, really appreciate you. We appreciate your work. Again, if you have not seen Aftershock, it is available on Hulu. It is an amazing documentary. So definitely be sure to check it out. But thank you so much, Tonya. Appreciate your time. Thank you for
always
being
good
here.
To talk with you. I always love the conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right.